Welcome to Snoozing Little Cloud. Here you will discover new stories, profound lessons, and fantastic adventures. If you like them, remember to support us by subscribing to the channel and activating the bell. Now make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, and let's begin the journey. Chapter 1. The Last Look at the Island. The boat was not large. It had no elegant sails or bright colors. It was a simple boat made of dark wood, with salt marks along the edges and ropes that creaked softly as if they were talking to each other. It floated motionless, tied to the pier, waiting. Nikos stood a few steps back. In front of him was the sea. Behind him, the island. The island made no sound. It did not greet him. It did not move. It was there as always. The low hills, the light-colored stones, the irregular line of the coast. Everything looked the same as 1,000 other days, and that was precisely why it was difficult to turn away. Nikos breathed slowly. Under his feet, he could still feel the island's earth, solid, familiar. It did not vibrate. It did not change. But it was as if it knew. He took a step forward, then another. Each step took him further away from something that would never return in the same way. There were few people on the boat. Men and women who asked him no questions. Someone was fixing a net. Someone else was checking the ropes. No one seemed interested in him any more than necessary. That was fine. Nikos boarded the boat without haste. The wood under his feet was different from the earth. It moved slightly, as if unsure whether it wanted to support him. He sat down near the edge. From there, he could still see the island clearly. The pier moved away a little, then more. The water between the boat and the land widened slowly, without any sudden movements. No loud noises, no signals, just distance. The wind began to push the boat out to sea. The island became a little smaller, then smaller still. Nikos wasn't looking for anything in particular. Not a sign, not an answer. He just looked as one looks at something one wants to remember well. The sea around him was calm, almost too calm. The surface reflected the sky, and for a moment it seemed that above and below were the same. Nikos clasped his hands on his knees. Inside him was a new feeling. It wasn't fear, it wasn't cowardice. It was emptiness. A large, open emptiness that didn't ask to be filled immediately. When the island became a thin line on the horizon, Nikos knew that the time had come. He didn't turn back. He didn't get up. He didn't say anything. He let the boat continue. The sea in front of him was vast, with no paths, no visible boundaries. It promised nothing. It warned of nothing. And for that very reason, it was real. Nikos remained seated, staring straight ahead, as the island disappeared completely. The journey had begun. Chapter 2. The Crossing. The sea changed slowly. At first it remained calm, almost gentle, as if it wanted to give Nikos time to get used to the idea of being far away. The waves were low and regular, and the boat glided over the water with a continuous, reassuring sound. Then the days began to resemble one another. The sky was often the same. So was the sea. Nikos lost track of time. He could no longer tell when it was morning or when the day was ending, except by observing the color of the light. There were no fixed points, no signs, only water. No one on the boat spoke much. People did what they had to do. They checked the ropes, arranged the cargo, watched the horizon. Sometimes they exchanged a few words, short, practical ones. No one told stories. No one asked questions. Nikos spent most of his time sitting with his back against the edge, watching the sea flow beneath him. The water did not react. It did not respond. It did not remember. Each wave erased the one before it. It was a strange feeling, almost uncomfortable. On the island, the land had always given the impression of holding on to something. Footsteps, presences, memories. Not here. Here everything passed and disappeared. At night, the sea became darker than the sky. Nikos lay down, wrapped in a rough blanket, listening to the sound of the water against the hull. It was not a loud sound, but a continuous one, like a slow breath that never stopped. He closed his eyes. Sometimes he dreamed of the island, not as it was, but as he felt it, still, silent, distant. When he woke up, the sea was always there, the same, indifferent. As the days passed, Nikos began to understand something important. He was not just running away from something. He was heading towards something he did not know. The sea did not ask who he was. It did not make room for him. It did not reject him. It simply let him exist above it. This idea made him feel small, but also free in a new way. One morning, the wind changed. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't violent, but the boat began to move differently, with small, irregular jolts. The waves no longer came from the same direction. Nikos noticed it with his body before his eyes. He instinctively clung to the edge. The sea ahead of them seemed darker, not threatening, but deeper, as if it were becoming more serious. Someone on the boat looked up at the sky. Nikos did the same. The clouds were gathering slowly, one on top of the other, as if they were preparing for something. The crossing was not over. The sea was just changing its face. Chapter 3. The Storm. The change was not immediate. For a while, the sea just seemed darker, heavier. The waves were not yet high, but they came irregularly, as if they no longer followed a precise pattern. The boat began to rise and fall with less predictable movements. Nikos kept his hands tightly gripped on the edge. The wind slowly picked up. It did not howl or whistle yet. It just pushed decisively, like a presence approaching unnoticed. The sky lost its depth. The color became solid. The clouds closed The sea was incredibly calm, as if nothing had happened. Nikos took a deep breath. He was alive. He was clinging to a piece of dark wood, perhaps part of the boat. Around him, the water moved gently, with low, slow waves. The sky above was not what he remembered. The light was different, no longer gray, no longer closed in. The color of the sky had a strange hue, difficult to define. It was not blue as before. It was not clear. It seemed deeper, as if the light was coming from another direction. Nikos lifted himself up slightly, looking around. The sea had unusual reflections. The waves did not shine as usual. The colors seemed fuller, denser, as if they had been painted calmly. Nothing was familiar. Nikos felt a tightening in his stomach, not from immediate fear, from a lack of recognition. It was as if the world around him was similar to before, but wrong in small details, enough to make him feel out of place. He looked at his hands, then at the piece of wood, then at the horizon. There was no land in sight. There was no sign of the boat, only sea and this new sky. Nikos stood still, letting himself be rocked by the water. He understood one thing clearly. The storm had not only carried him far away, it had taken him elsewhere, and the journey was no longer what he had imagined. Chapter 4. The world after Nikos didn't know how much time had passed. The sun, if that was a sun, was already high in the sky when he managed to lift himself up onto the piece of wood he was clinging to. The sea remained calm, too calm to be true after a storm like that. There were no visible wrecks around him, no sails, no voices, only water. Yet something was wrong. The sky had a color that Nikos could not name. It was not blue, it was not gray. It was as if the light passed through the air differently, slower, thicker. Even the clouds, few and distant, seemed still, suspended. Nikos narrowed his eyes. The sea reflected that strange sky without breaking it. The waves were low, but not as regular as before the journey. Every movement of the water seemed slightly delayed, as if the sea were thinking before moving. He turned slowly, looking for the horizon. It was there, but it wasn't the same. There was nothing he recognized, no familiar lines, no point that could say, "I've been here." This struck him more than the storm. On the island, even when he didn't understand, he always felt a continuity. Not here. Here, the world offered no footholds. It was as if he had arrived in a place that had no memory of him, or of anyone else. Nikos took a deep breath. The air smelled different. Not unpleasant, but new. More humid, more full, as if it carried something he did not yet know. He tried to move his legs. The water was cold, but not freezing. He did not feel any strong currents beneath him. The piece of wood floated steadily, as if it had been designed to support him. That feeling made him shiver. It was not fear, it was alertness, like when you enter a place that makes no noise, but observes. Nikos looked at the sky again. The color was changing slowly, almost imperceptibly, as if time had a different pace. There was no rush. There was no pressure. Everything seemed to be going according to a rule he did not know. For a moment, he had the impression that the sea itself was waiting for something, or someone. Nikos looked down at the water, then at the horizon. He realized that he was not simply far away. He was in elsewhere, a world that was not hostile, but not familiar either. He stayed like that for a long time, letting himself be lulled by the slow waves, trying to figure out what to do. Going back was not an option. Neither was staying still. He had to move, even though he didn't know in which direction. Clutching the wood beneath him, Nikos let himself drift a little longer, observing every detail of this new sea, this new sky, trying to learn its rules. The journey had not ended with the storm. It had just entered a different phase, and Nikos, for the first time, really knew it. Chapter 5. Sailing Again. At first, Nikos let himself drift, not by choice, but because his body needed it. His arms were tired, his hands sore from clinging on for too long. The piece of wood swayed gently, following a movement that seemed neither random nor deliberate. The sea carried him. It did not push him forcefully. It did not hold him back. It accompanied him. As time passed, Nikos began to notice small details. The direction of the waves, first of all. They did not come from all sides as they had during the storm. They seemed to follow a precise line, as if the sea had chosen an invisible path. The wind had changed too. It blew lightly but steadily, always from the same side. Not strong enough to hurt, but enough to move the water. Nikos turned slowly, observing the horizon. On one side, the sea seemed darker. On the other, the light was slightly different. It wasn't land, but it wasn't just water either. The piece of wood hit something. Not hard, just a sharp, short blow. Nikos jumped and looked down. A larger shape emerged from the waves, a long, curved board with obvious signs of craftsmanship. It was not a random piece of wreckage. It was part of a boat. His boat. Or at least, what was left of it. Carefully, Nikos approached. He moved slowly with slow movements, as he had learned to do on the island when he didn't want to disturb the ground. The plank was still fairly stable. Next to it floated other parts, a rope, a small board, a piece of the side. It wasn't much, but it was enough. For the first time since he had opened his eyes, Nikos felt something change inside him. It wasn't relief. It was intention. He worked for a long time without rushing. He tied what he could with the rope he had found. He arranged the planks as stably as possible. He wasn't building a real boat, but something that could float and follow the wind more safely. Every gesture was simple, imperfect, but necessary. The sea did not resist. The waves continued to move slowly, as if they were watching to see what he would do. When Nikos sat down on what was now a makeshift raft, the world around him had not changed. The sky was still strange. The light was still different. But he had changed. He was no longer just someone floating. He was someone who chose to go. Nikos looked up towards the part of the horizon where the light seemed brighter. He didn't know what was there. He didn't even know if there was anything there. But it was a direction. And for now, that was enough. He settled himself more comfortably, letting the wind catch the raft from the side. The movement became more decisive, more continuous. The sea no longer erased everything in the same way. Now it accompanied a journey. Nikos breathed in slowly. He wasn't going back. He wasn't going home. He was sailing again. And whatever awaited him, it wouldn't be a mistake. Chapter 6. The Unknown Harbor. The land appeared slowly. At first, it was just a change in the horizon, a darker line interrupting the reflection of the sky on the water. Then that line took shape, an irregular coastline, low in some places, higher in others, as if it had been calmly shaped by time. Nikos watched it for a long time. He did not feel sudden joy. He felt alertness. The raft continued to move forward, guided by the light wind and the constant movement of the sea. As it approached the coast, the water changed color. It became clearer, more vivid, crossed by reflections that Nikos had never seen before. As he got closer, he began to make out precise shapes. Wooden and stone structures stretched out towards the sea. Jetties, poles, low platforms. They were not like the buildings on the island. They had different angles, new proportions, as if they followed an idea of space that Nikos did not know. The harbor was busy. Boats of various sizes entered and exited slowly. Some had tall, light sails, others had wide hulls low in the water. The colors were brighter than he was used to. Warm fabrics, light woods, dyed ropes. Everything moved at its own pace. When the raft got close enough, someone noticed it. A man pointed to the sea. Another approached the edge of the pier. There were no shouts, only clear, practical gestures. A rope was thrown with precision. Nikos grabbed it, feeling the rough fiber run through his fingers. In a few moments, the raft was pulled up to the wooden pier. The journey on the water was over. Nikos remained seated for a moment. His body needed to understand that he was now stationary. The wood beneath him no longer swayed. The sea continued to move beside him, but it no longer supported him directly. Then he stood up. His first step on land was uncertain. His legs sought a balance that was no longer that of the island. Here, the ground was hard, compact, marked by traces of constant passage. It was a lived-in land. Around him, people continued their activities. Someone was loading crates. Someone else was speaking in a rapid, musical tone, in a language Nikos did not understand. The sounds were new but not confusing. They had a repeating rhythm, like a melody learned over time. No one stared at him for long. Nikos was just one of many arrivals. This struck him. He walked slowly along the harbor, letting his eyes adjust. Every detail seemed to tell a different story. Nets repaired with patience, marks carved into the wood of the boats, symbols painted near the entrances to the warehouses. He did not recognize those marks, yet he felt that they had a specific meaning. Here, people knew where they were. Nikos stopped near the water and looked at the sea behind him. The sky still had that special light, but the earth seemed to welcome it differently, transforming it into something stable, as if that world already knew how to function. He breathed in slowly. He had arrived in a new place, not by chance, not by mistake. The port continued to live around him, indifferent and real. And for the first time since the storm had taken him elsewhere, Nikos felt that the journey was about to change shape. No longer just the sea. Now there were people, rules, differences, and everything was yet to really begin. Chapter 7. People from Another Culture. Nikos immediately realized that he was in a place where the rules were different. There were no signs. There were no clear directions. Yet everyone seemed to know exactly where to go. People moved confidently, crossing the harbor without hesitation. Their steps had a decisive rhythm, as if every gesture were part of a sequence learned long ago. No one ran. No one stopped without reason. Nikos walked more slowly. He observed. The clothes were the first thing he noticed. They were not like those on the island. The fabrics were lighter, often layered, with warm colors and markings sewn along the edges. Some bore simple symbols, others more complex shapes, repeated with precision. They did not seem like random decorations. They were markings that meant something. Voices filled the air. The language they spoke was new to Nikos, but it was not harsh. It had soft sounds and frequent pauses, as if the words needed space to breathe. The sentences rose and fell, creating a rhythm that was recognizable even without understanding the meaning. Nikos stopped near a small square in the harbor. A group of people were talking animatedly. They exchanged objects, pointed to the sea, laughed. Every gesture was clear, direct, shared. Communication here did not seem to depend solely on words. Someone passed by him and looked at him for a moment. Not with suspicion, not with insistent curiosity, just with attention. Then they continued on their way. Nikos realized that in this place being new was not unusual. People arrived, left, changed. The harbor was made for this. He followed the smell of food. It came from a series of stalls not far from the water. Low pots, light smoke, intensely fragrant spices. People stopped, talked briefly, took something and left. Nikos approached. A woman behind one of the stalls watched him calmly. She said something to him that he did not understand, but the tone was clear. She handed him a small bowl. Nikos hesitated for just a moment, then took it. The food was hot, simple, different from what he was used to. The flavor lingered in his mouth longer than expected, as if it needed time to be understood. As he ate, Nikos looked around. No one explained things here. You learned by watching how to stand, how to wait, how to understand when it was your turn. It was a world that demanded attention, not questions, and that strangely made him feel more at ease. As he moved away from the harbor and began to enter the city proper, the streets became narrower. The houses were built next to each other with internal passageways, shared courtyards, and doors that were always ajar. Life was not hidden. It was simply distributed. Nikos felt that if he stayed, he would have to learn another way of being among people. Not better, not worse, just different. He stopped near a low wall, watching the movement in front of him. The sea was now behind him. Ahead of him was a world he did not know. Yet, step by step, Nikos began to find his place within that new rhythm. Not as someone who arrives to change things, but as someone who learns before moving. The journey was entering a slower phase, a deeper one. Chapter 8. The name that doesn't matter. Nikos realized he had become invisible in a new way. Not because no one could see him, but because no one needed to know who he was. In the harbor and the nearby streets, people passed each other without stopping to ask names. All that mattered was what you were doing, where you were going, whether you were in the way or not. The rest was unnecessary. Walking through the streets of the city, Nikos felt this clearly. No one asked him where he came from. No one seemed to expect explanations. He was a stranger, yes, but one of many who passed through there. And that lightened his heart. He entered a narrower street where the noise of the harbor was muffled. The houses were almost touching, connected by low arches and covered passageways. The air was cooler, filled with different smells: wood, water, food, fabrics. A man sitting on a stool was fixing nets. He looked up at Nikos, watched him for a moment, and nodded his head, as if to say, "You can pass." Nikos returned the gesture and continued on his way. There were no words, but the meaning was clear. Further on, a woman was washing clothes in a large stone basin. Two children were running around, stopping only to look at Nikos with sincere curiosity. One of them pointed to his hands, perhaps noticing the marks left by the sea and the ropes. The woman said something in a calm tone. The children stopped staring at him and went back to playing. Nikos smiled slightly. Here, attention lasted just the right amount of time. Then life resumed. He realized something important. On the island, every presence had a specific weight. Every step left a mark. Every change was felt. Here, however, the world seemed bigger than the individual people, not because people mattered less, but because the flow was continuous. Entering, leaving, stopping, starting again. In all this, the name was not the most important thing. Nikos sat down on a stone step, watching the street. People passed in front of him without slowing down. Some carried objects, others talked to each other, others walked in silence. No one asked him to explain himself. For the first time since he had left the island, Nikos felt that he could simply be. Not someone who had to prove something, not someone who had to be recognized, just a temporary presence in motion. He stayed there for a long time, letting the rhythm of the city wash over him. The sound of footsteps, voices, the wind passing between the houses. Everything had a natural cadence, as if the city were breathing without realizing it. When he got up, the sun had changed position. The light was lower, warmer, stretching the shadows on the walls. Nikos set off again. He still didn't know where he would sleep. He didn't know how long he would stay. But he understood one thing with new clarity. In this place, the journey did not begin with a name. It began with listening, and he was ready to learn. Chapter 9. The Unwritten Rules. Nikos noticed the rules even before he understood them. They were not spoken aloud. They were not written on the walls. Yet they guided every movement. He understood this by observing people. The way they paused before entering a house. The way they avoided certain passages, even when they seemed shorter. The way they lowered their gaze slightly in front of some elderly people without actually bowing. Everything was measured. Everything had a balance. Walking through the city, Nikos began to pay attention to details. He noticed that no one occupied the center of the narrowest streets. People always walked slightly to one side, leaving space. He noticed that conversations stopped when someone carrying goods passed by, as if that task had a silent priority. He also noticed that the sea, despite being nearby, was never mentioned aloud in the inner streets. This struck him. Nikos stopped near a small square, where a few people were sitting in a circle. They did not talk much. Every now and then, one of them would say a few words, then silence would return to fill the space. It did not seem like a meeting. It seemed like shared listening. Nikos stayed on the sidelines without getting too close. No one motioned for him to leave, but no one invited him to join them either. He understood that this distance was right. Here, you couldn't just walk in anywhere. You had to wait. Later, passing by a house with the door wide open, Nikos started to look inside. A figure inside raised his hand slightly, a simple gesture without harshness. Nikos looked away. The gesture was not a prohibition. It was a reminder. As the hours passed, Nikos began to move differently. He slowed his pace. He stopped looking around constantly. He let things come to him. That was how it worked. You didn't take space. You found it. Towards evening, the light changed. The shadows lengthened and the city grew quieter. Some activities continued. Others died down without a sound. People returned home, one by one, as if following a common rhythm. Nikos sat down on a stone step, finally feeling the tiredness set in. It was not just physical tiredness, it was the fatigue of someone who had spent the day trying to understand a new world. Yet it was not a heavy fatigue. It was a fatigue that taught. Looking at the city preparing for the night, Nikos understood something essential. The rules of that place were not there to control. They were there to maintain balance. Those who understood them found their place. Those who ignored them always felt out of place. Nikos did not know them yet, but he was learning to recognize them. And that, in that world, was the first real step towards staying. Chapter 10. When night falls. When darkness fell on the city, the harbor changed its appearance. It did not happen suddenly. It was a gradual transition, as if the light had receded, leaving room for something that had always been there, waiting. The streets, which during the day had been filled with voices and orderly exchanges, became quieter. The windows closed one after the other. Lanterns were lit with quick movements, sentences. It wasn't the right language, but the tone was that of someone who knows where they are. The figure hesitated. That moment of hesitation was all it took. Nikos continued to speak, mixing gestures and broken words. He made it clear that he had nothing of value, that he was not there to cause trouble, that he was just looking for a place to spend the night. He did not ask for mercy. He showed awareness. The other person watched him for a moment longer, then gave a brief nod and walked away, swallowed up by the darkness. Nikos stood still until the footsteps disappeared completely. Only then did he truly breathe. He understood something important. In that city, strength counted for little. What counted was understanding before others did. Understanding when to speak, when to stop, when to show that you knew more than you were saying. The night did not forgive naivety. Nikos found shelter near a boat pulled ashore, hidden among other vessels. He sat down, his back against the cold wood, letting fatigue overcome him. The harbor continued to move. Quick exchanges, silent encounters, agreements that did not need to be written down. Nikos watched, learned. When the sky began to lighten slightly, he realized he had passed an invisible test. He had not fought. He had not won. He had understood how to stand his ground even in an uncomfortable place. And in that city of thieves and pirates, that was a quality worth more than any weapon. Chapter 11. The gang that doesn't steal for itself. Nikos realized he was being watched long before he saw who was doing it. It wasn't a persistent gaze. It was a constant, discreet presence that moved with him without ever getting too close. He sensed it in the reflections of the lanterns, in the footsteps that changed pace when he slowed down. It wasn't a threat. It was an assessment. The night was coming to an end when it happened, as Nikos crossed a less well-lit area of the harbor. A voice called him softly, using a tone that left no room for panic. "You." Nikos turned slowly. 3 figures emerged from the shadows. They did not look like the thieves he had encountered the night before. Their movements were more controlled, more silent. None of them showed weapons, but not because they didn't have any. Because they didn't need them. One of them spoke again. He didn't say his name. He didn't ask who Nikos was. He just said, "You move well, and you listen before you act." Nikos didn't answer right away. He did what he had learned. He observed. He understood that this was not an interrogation. It was an invitation disguised as an observation. He gave a small nod. They led him through alleys that Nikos had not noticed before. Low passageways, inner courtyards, doors that opened without making a sound. The city seemed to offer hidden spaces only to those who knew how to look for them. They arrived in a simple room lit by a single lantern. There were other people sitting along the walls. No one spoke. They all watched. The atmosphere was tense but not hostile. "We are not just any gang," said a woman, breaking the silence. "And we are not looking for strength." Nikos looked at her. "We steal," she continued without hesitation, "but we choose from whom, and we choose why." They explained everything to him without embellishment. They stole from greedy merchants, from those who hoarded food and money, while others were left with nothing. They moved resources around, broke unfair balances, letting the city breathe a little easier. They weren't heroes, but they weren't predators either. "Two things matter here," said a man sitting at the back of the room. "Intuition and cunning." Nikos understood that they weren't talking about pointless deception. They were talking about understanding people, reading situations, choosing when to act and when to stop. They told him they had seen him moving in the night, that he had avoided confrontation, that he had spoken when necessary, rare qualities. "We're not asking you to decide now," the woman concluded, "but know that if you stay in the city, someone will ask you to choose sides anyway." They left Nikos alone. Sitting in the silent room, Nikos thought about the island, about the Guardian, about the fragile balance he had learned to respect. He realized that even there, the world worked the same way. The forms changed, but not the questions. Remaining neutral sometimes meant allowing injustice to continue. When he returned in the light of dawn, Nikos had already made up his mind. Not out of need, not out of fear, but because he had recognized something familiar in that gang, the imperfect attempt to protect those who could not do so themselves. That evening he returned to the same place. He did not say many words. He made no promises. He simply said, "I'm staying." That was enough. No one smiled, no one celebrated. But from that moment on, Nikos was no longer just a traveler in the harbor. He had made his first choice in this new world. Chapter 12. The First Hit. Nikos realized that this wasn't a test when no one told him it was. The gang didn't explain everything. Everyone had to figure out for themselves when it was time to step up. And that evening, as the sun sank behind the city rooftops, Nikos felt that it was his turn to step up. They gathered in a hidden space between two warehouses, far from the main roads. There were no maps, no long speeches. Just a few sentences exchanged in low voices and a few precise gestures. The target was clear. A merchant who hoarded more than he could ever use, while entire families in the inner neighborhood struggled to eat. There was no talk of revenge. They spoke of rebalancing. Nikos listened. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. He observed the way the others moved, how they distributed roles without needing to discuss them. Everyone knew their task and respected that of the others. He was not entrusted with any direct action. He had to watch, understand, intervene only if necessary. It was exactly the kind of task that suited him. They moved when the night was deep enough. The streets around the warehouse were almost empty. The lanterns created areas of light alternating with thick shadows, ideal for those who knew how to navigate them. Nikos felt his heart beating faster, but it wasn't fear. It was pure alertness. Every noise was evaluated. Every step had weight. At one point, something changed. A man appeared on the street corner earlier than expected. He wasn't part of the plan. He stopped, looking towards the warehouse, as if he had sensed a movement out of place. Nikos saw him before the others did. He didn't shout. He didn't make any sudden movements. He approached naturally, pretending to be a tired passerby. He spoke in a low voice, pointing in the wrong direction, using simple words and calm gestures. He did not tell an elaborate story. He hinted enough to confuse. The man hesitated. Then he changed direction. Nikos returned unnoticed. The plan resumed its course. When it was all over, there were no celebrations. The goods were moved quickly. Some would be distributed that same night. Some left where someone would find them at the right time. No one took more than they needed. It was an unspoken rule, but an absolute one. They found Nikos shortly afterwards in a safe place. The woman who had spoken to him first looked at him carefully. She did not smile, but there was something different in her eyes. "You know when to move," she said. It was not a compliment. It was recognition. Nikos nodded. He felt no pride. He felt responsibility. Returning to his shelter, Nikos thought back on what he had done. He had not stolen with his hands. He had stolen time from a mistake. He had diverted a consequence. He realized that such actions left deeper marks than they seemed, and he realized something else. Joining that gang didn't mean hiding in the shadows. It meant choosing which side to be on every time, even when it was uncomfortable. The city slept only on the surface. Beneath, it continued to move. And Nikos was now part of that movement. Chapter 13. The Consequences. Nikos realized that nothing in that city remained unanswered. The coup had succeeded. The goods had been moved, distributed, hidden. At dawn, in the innermost neighborhoods, someone had found food in front of their door. Someone else had received what they needed to get through the winter. But the port city was not a naive place. Any imbalance was immediately sought to be redressed. In the days that followed, the atmosphere changed. The streets looked the same, but people were more alert. Some merchants spoke in lower voices. Private guards appeared more often near wealthy warehouses, with heavy footsteps and hands always at the ready. The gang knew it. No one spoke openly about it, but everyone had slowed down, as if the city were holding its breath. Nikos observed everything. He did not intervene. He did not propose solutions. He was learning something fundamental. After an action, silence was part of the response. You had to let the world show its reactions before moving again. One evening, as they were crossing a side alley, one of the gang members suddenly stopped. He pointed to a mark carved into the wall, small, almost invisible. Nikos recognized it. Not the mark itself, but its meaning. Someone was looking for those who had dared. The tension did not explode. It spread. Some contacts disappeared for a few days. Some doors remained closed longer than usual. The gang reduced their meetings, communicating only what was strictly necessary. Nikos understood that this was not fear. It was respect for the city and its tougher side. One night, the woman who led the group took him aside. She didn't talk to him about the heist. She didn't talk to him about the risks. She asked him what he thought. Nikos thought before answering. Then he said that the city was reacting like a body that notices a wound. Not to punish immediately, but to understand where to strike if necessary. The woman nodded. That was exactly what she thought too. In the days that followed, Nikos became more involved. Not in the actions, but in the observations. They asked him to watch, to listen, to understand where the tension was growing and where it was slipping away. It was a new responsibility, and Nikos understood that in that gang, trust was not given for what you did, but for what you understood. One evening, on his way back to his shelter, Nikos stopped to watch the harbor. Ships continued to arrive and depart. Pirates conducted business as usual. Petty thieves looked for opportunities. The city lived on, adapting. The attack had not changed it. It had only forced it to reveal itself. Nikos clearly felt that he was entering a different phase of his journey. It was no longer just learning. Now there were consequences to deal with. And he realized that if he continued down this path, sooner or later he would have to choose between remaining in the shadows or taking on a more visible role. The port city did not forget those who knew how to move well within it. And someone, somewhere, had begun to take note. Chapter 14. The Price of Balance. Nikos soon realized that balance was not a stable state. It was a continuous effort. After the coup, the gang had slowed down its activities, but the consequences continued to ripple beneath the surface of the city. The merchants who had been affected did not react openly, but began to form alliances. Private guards had multiplied. Some new faces appeared too often in the same places. The city watched and prepared. The gang met in a more inland location than usual, far from the harbor. There were no heated discussions, only measured words and attentive glances. That evening, Nikos spoke more than usual. Not to command, to clarify. He pointed out that the problem was not the heist itself, but what it had revealed. Who really controlled the city's resources, and as long as that control remained in the same hands, any attempt to redress the balance would come at an increasing cost. Not everyone agreed, but no one ignored him. Shortly afterwards, the news arrived. A family that had received help had been threatened. Not directly, but enough to get the message across. No violence, just fear. The gang was faced with a difficult choice: Continue, risking exposing the very people they wanted to protect, or stop, allowing the system to slowly return to the way it was before. Nikos felt the weight of that decision. It was easier to hit a warehouse than to defend a person over time. That night, Nikos walked alone through the city. He wasn't looking for immediate answers. He was trying to understand if there was room in that world for justice that wasn't just temporary. He watched the lights in the houses, the slow movements of the ships, the shadows stretching across the walls. He realized that the problem was not choosing between acting or stopping. The problem was how to act. He returned to the gang with a different proposal. Not a strike, not a show of force, a silent action that would leave no obvious marks. Shift the focus. Create confusion among those who accumulated power instead of always hitting the same targets. Not everyone was convinced, but it was clear that Nikos was no longer seeing the city as a set of opportunities, but as a complex, fragile organism. In the end, they decided to try, not because it was the best solution, but because it was the only one that did not immediately endanger those who could not defend themselves. Nikos clearly felt that this was the price of balance, giving up the most obvious actions to build something slower and more uncertain. As they parted, the woman who led the gang stopped him. "You're changing," she said. It wasn't a warning, it was an observation. Nikos nodded. He wasn't becoming stronger. He was becoming more responsible. And that, in a city like this, was much more dangerous. Chapter 15. A Choice That Remains. The port city woke up as usual, but Nikos knew that something had changed, not outside, inside him. The latest decisions made by the gang had eased the visible tensions. The most greedy merchants had begun to distrust each other. The private guards had become less aggressive, more concerned with controlling each other than with searching for invisible culprits. The system was adapting, but Nikos felt that this phase could not last long. Walking along the pier, he watched the ships depart. Some would never return. Others would come back laden with stories, goods, and new problems. For the first time, Nikos wondered if he too had become a permanent fixture in this place. He hadn't come with the intention of staying, but neither had he come with the intention of leaving quickly. The city had not asked him anything openly. It was he who had chosen to respond. The gang met once again in a quiet, protected space, not to plan an action, but to take stock. There was weariness and awareness in their eyes. Everyone felt the weight of what they had done, and what might still happen. It was then that the woman spoke. She said that the city was entering a new phase, that the way they had acted had worked, but that it could not become routine. Any balance, if repeated, ceased to be a balance. Then she looked at Nikos. She did not ask him to lead. She did not ask him to command. She asked him what he wanted to do. It was the most difficult question. Nikos took his time to answer. He said he didn't want to become a symbol, nor a leader, nor someone who was only sought out when there was a problem. He said he had learned a lot, but that he didn't want to stop traveling, even if he stayed put. He said he would continue to be there, but in his own way. The gang accepted, not as a concession, but as recognition. Nikos would not always be present. He would not be involved in every decision, but he would remain a point of balance, someone capable of seeing the city for what it really was, without idealizing or fearing it. That evening, Nikos returned to the harbor. The sea was calm. The lights reflected on the water, broken by the slow movement of the waves. He sat on the edge of the pier, letting the sound of the water clear his thoughts. He realized that the journey was not just about departures. Sometimes it was about choices that remain, even when everything else moves on. Nikos did not know how long he would stay in that city. He did not know what would prompt him to leave one day. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Wherever he went next, he would no longer be just an observer. He had learned to intervene without destroying, to choose without imposing himself, to move in imperfect worlds without ceasing to seek balance. The port city continued to live, and Nikos was now part of it, not as a master, not as a hero, but as someone who had chosen who to be even when no one was watching. Chapter 16. The sea never forgets. The harbor seemed quieter than usual, not because it had actually changed, but because Nikos had learned to recognize its subtler rhythms. The morning noises were the same as always, ropes sliding across wood, hurried footsteps, voices overlapping. Yet beneath that normality, he sensed a different order, as if the city had accepted something. Nikos walked slowly along the pier. He had no particular destination in mind. He looked at the ships one by one, observing the rolled-up sails, the salt-marked hulls, the symbols painted on the sides. Each ship told a story. Each departure left a void. For the first time since he had arrived, Nikos did not feel the need to prove anything to anyone. The gang had not been seen for days, not out of fear, by choice. When the balance was working, their presence had to become invisible. It was a lesson that Nikos had understood thoroughly. Intervening less could mean protecting more. Yet he knew that this period of calm would not last forever. The sea never allowed balances to become definitive. He stopped near a boat ready to depart. The crew was loading the last supplies. No one really noticed him, and that was fine with him. He watched the water move against the wood, always the same and always different. It was then that he felt that familiar sensation. Not a clear call, rather a direction. Nikos realized that the port city had taught him all it could, for now. He had learned to move among different men, to recognize silent power, to understand when a choice had consequences greater than those who made it. But there was a part of him that remained incomplete, a bond that had not been broken. He thought of the island, not as a distant place, but as something that continued to exist alongside him, even while he was elsewhere. He thought of Milo, of his way of feeling the earth, of reacting to what had no words. He realized that that bond had never weakened. It had simply been put on hold. That evening, Nikos made no hasty decisions. He did not announce any departures. He made no promises. But he began to prepare. Small gestures, a few things gathered, a longer look towards the horizon, as if the sea needed time to notice him before opening the way for him again. When night fell on the harbor, Nikos realized he was not leaving the city. He was simply taking it with him. The choices made there would not be left behind. They would influence every step he took, every silence, every balance he would encounter. The sea moved slowly, night.